Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Boston Breaches seems are the only team to make a roster change going into the Major 4 qualifiers. We believe though for some time that Los Angeles Thieves and certainly the Minnesota Rokkr were to be considering moves. However, rumours have emerged over the last couple of days. Minnesota Rokkr did talk a lot about potentially making this move, but decided to back down in the end with a new strategy they are unveiling to actually make this happen. The general consensus is this is a bad idea. Their World Championship qualification is absolutely in the balance. It may not happen again for the second year in a row. Are Minnesota Rokkr making a huge mistake and not making a roster change? Will they live to regret it as time progresses? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Not gonna lie, that guy actually does kind of look like Pred, doesn't he? I mean, is this not AG in this mask right? He's even got the beard, you know what I mean? Like, he's even got the beard going on. Bit of drama though go down yesterday. Here's Colt Havoc getting #1 in the top 250s. That was cool to see. But also there was that $10,000 tournament with, the SGP tournament, as we'll see right here. Bit of drama just because Cruz says, round 2, we're playing Snoopy, Shawnee, Pentagrxm, and Nasties. Now, there was meant to be a content creator and like 3 pros. I think that was kind of the idea. 3 pros, 1 content guy. Snoopy is a current pro. Pentagrxm is still a bench player for Boston. Maybe he'll never get another chance. But, they've not kicked him. He's still a bench player for those guys. Shawnee is, well, he plays the other week in the actual league. He is their coach, technically. And then Arcetes is obviously a challengers player and a 2-time world champion. So, who is basically Cruz is saying these guys, none of these guys are content creators. It's unfair. But you guys know how it goes. Like, Scump could turn up to this tourney and say, well, I'm a content creator. And they would say, oh, yeah, absolutely, Scump. Come right along. And I don't really know what this was between Arcetes and Prolute, but I thought I'd mention it. Kind of interesting. There was also, speaking of Prolute, this screenshot going around of Dashy absolutely cooking on this invasion, search and destroy. Here he was with Raxi, Exceed, and HyDra. That was his team of 4 up against Cellium's team with Drazah in the finals, and at least they played in the finals. Drazah was 7-9 here. Prolute, Optimum, and Cellium, that was their team of 4. And Dashy, as he's been doing a lot lately, taking over big time here on the invasion, search and destroy. Lots of examples of that back at the major. That doesn't seem to be going away. This clip as well, wanted to share real quick. HyDra in a nice little 1 versus 2. This is, watching this, you just see why HyDra and Dashy and these top pros are just so good and so much better than everybody else. At least, a lot better than many of the top amateurs and stuff like this. But HyDra plays this quite nicely. Gets into this position here. Eventually, he gets the first kill onto Drazah. So, he pops up here. Charles Drazah gets the kill. 1v1 now against Prolute. He gets a couple of shots into him from the back, or they don't connect, but he at least sees him. And then look at this from HyDra. Just completely beams the guy. That's a 3-2 lead. In the end, though, pretty sure they got reverse swept by Cellium and the boys. So, Cell, Drazah, Optimum, and Prolute, they take the win on the SGP Syndicate Tourney. 4v4, 10k on the line. Pretty cool to see. But speaking of FaZe, we've got more updates on this stat line. So we saw this over the last couple of days now. Looking at the best teams in COD history, their win rate on, generally speaking, every single day, compared to their win rate on Championship Sunday, who's got the ice, right? And Crim6 and the Complexity team certainly had the ice. These were the numbers there, 31-4, 89% win rate, absurdly good. These are the numbers, of course, for FaZe. Different time nowadays, and also you've got to consider a larger sample size. We're talking since the LAN events, I guess, in, MW19 and Cold War, and obviously since then as well. So it's been a bit of a different story, of course. FaZe, it's a different time nowadays. Their era, as it were, has lasted much longer. They're only really dominant in Cold War, but ever since then it hasn't been the same thing. But at the same time, they've still been around longer. And the sample size thing is like the one maybe weakness with Complexity to some degree, because they didn't stick as a full roster for like all that long in the grand scheme of things, but they did stick for a lot of events because there were more events back in the day. So we were kind of speculating where do OpTic fall here, because this FaZe team is at like 50% Champ Sunday win rates. The Cold Dynasty, the most dominant team we've ever seen, maybe not the best, obviously in terms of best team ever, many would say the OpTic Gaming Dynasty, and understandably so. But in terms of the most dominant team, I think it is going to be Complexity. Many would say just best team, full stop, with Crim, Eggs, TPN, Karma, or even close to before that, as it were. So where would the OpTic Dynasty fall here? We saw some numbers yesterday that indicated 81, 82%. I believe the numbers are actually as follows: 75%. So every other day, they were 141 in 30. And on the Sunday, where you play the best teams, they were 63 in 21, winning 82.5% of games not on Championship Sunday, and 75% of games when they were on Championship Sunday. So this to me is quite telling again, because it's a similar number to what Col had. Col had, you know, high 80s, OpTic are at like 75, but also that is a bigger sample size. They played more tournaments over more years than the Col guys did. So in some ways equally impressive potentially, but I just think it shows those are the two COD dynasties, right? The Col dynasty, the OpTic dynasty, and it's quite clear that FaZe aren't, you know, at that level. Now, maybe they're at that level in other ways, and I think there's certainly an argument to be made for how insanely good those FaZe guys are, but that particular Sunday record doesn't paint the picture that they would like. Couple of records as well going around. Most kills in a series this year is at Shotzzy. Most kills on a map is at 44 between Simp and Scrap. You will see some familiar names here, really. Most damage in the series is Drazah. Most damage in Search. Most damage in a map is Sib at over 8,000. Highest series KD, 1.84. And that actually, I think the highest individual map KD, I wonder what that was. I'm pretty sure that's also, well, it used to be owned by Purge, I think, or maybe a Skid Row Hardpoint. Then that went to Cellium with a 6-0. Like 24-4, was it a Control Invasion possibly? Purge still though does own the most kill time in a map stat, which is also kind of ridiculous. Highest series team KD is always a 1.53 from OpTic, so some pretty absurd numbers there. Players that you're not seeing here, with the exception of Vivid and actually Standy, to be fair, who were playing the same role technically on that team because one got replaced by the other, is the Minnesota Rokkr. And I want to just share really what the flank guys were talking about Minnesota, because I thought they were going to make a change. I was convinced they were going to do something because it seemed like their team was just shambolic, and I still think it's pretty bad, as do the guys seem to agree.
This, in theory, should help them get better at the game mode they're weaker in. Do I have them faith in qualifying for champs? Probably not. Am I absolutely fucking mind blown that no other team has made a chance? Abso-fucking-lutely, because these rosters are terrible.
Yeah, I to the Boston thing, look, Mike is obviously a great search player. I agree with you on that. We'll see what it does for the respawn, but this is just sort of trying to get some kind of strong finish sort of end the season of note, and then we'll see what they do long term. I am very surprised to your point that Minnesota, who apparently had a very large team conversation on the weekend of the event and have decided to kind of stick and move forward, surprised they didn't really make a change. Thieves apparently thought about it and didn't pull the trigger on it. So yeah, I'm surprised only one of the sort of three teams I expected ended up actually rotating out.
I'm sorry. Like, there's a couple of teams and a couple of players on these teams. I'm sorry. If your teammate is dropping 0.5s, 0.6s, literally, and you are having relatively close games, close series with good teams, you need to get rid of him. I am sorry. These people should not be on teams. Rokkr, listen, I don't know what team talk you had or what the hell convinced you guys to stay together, but your team is ass.
Oh,
like,
Jesus.
you have two of the slowest AR players in the league. You have not been able to perform consistently from either of them. Like, and when bar for bar with all these other rosters, you're terrible. Like,
he's fucking
Standy is not saving you. That guy is begging for it. I don't understand what you're doing.
This is a Chris Legacy episode.
I talked to Pierce
there goes
last
that
week,
man.
and to talking to Pierce felt, and the team felt that there is an overall strategy change that they want to try and hardpoint. They think will fix their issue. I was sworn to secrecy not to say what it was.
You put it in the chat?
Yeah, I can put it in the chat. But this was essentially like
what
I was
are
sworn
you
to
gonna
secrecy.
do?
I'll
What do
put it in the
you
chat.
mean strategy, bro? What are you gonna do? Get a kill? Like,
yeah, I don't
rotate
Sprint
earlier,
put on
maybe?
single tap.
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's not about, unless people are legit adjusting play styles. Then that's a
strat.
I know. I was mind blown, but
I was more surprised Rokkr didn't make the change, to be honest. But
Bro,
yeah,
we
these
just,
as
like,
well.
if you're on the bubble, like, these teams are fighting to go to champs, bro. Everyone's super close, and I feel like the fact that they're not trying to make a change and they're just trying to fucking magically make it work when you know your roster construction is shit is insane.
Bro, I'm sorry. I think I've said this. I think I've said this in regards to like Lamar, and I'll call him out here. Just like I've said this, prove me wrong. Like every time I talk to like about his rosters and like I see him underperform, I always turn away and I say, listen, if they're gonna keep you on this team because he's been in the league for a long time, regardless of his like severe underperformances at times, I always say, prove me wrong. And at times he's stepped up his game, but like, again, listen, if you guys are so hell-bent on sticking together, prove me wrong that this roster can work. I'll fucking eat my words. But like, bro, just it doesn't make sense at all. And every other team has showed improvements, and your team is literally not. And you went from what, the 5th seed to like down to the 8th or 9th. Like, I don't know what they're thinking over here. But if this team falls off a cliff again, I will be shocked if we see some of these players in the league again, because it's about that time.
So this weekend, Minnesota Rokkr, they play Boston Breach. I'm sure we will absolutely buzz in for that one, right? Now, look, Boston, I'm kind of looking forward to their new team. We get to see the Major Maniacs storyline versus like Minnesota Rokkr. And I'm sure there's going to be some interest. But fundamentally, the team has not been good. These were their numbers back at Major 3. They got, what, 20 points all stage? Maybe did they get 2 wins online, possibly? Stanley was a big part of why, especially as search and destroy play. You know, I've talked about it before. Linden Stanley as an SMG duo, I don't think it works. Gunless and Accuracy as an AR duo, I don't think it works. I think these two play too similar in terms of what they want to do on the map sometimes, and I think it's the same for Gunless and Accuracy. Who's the leader? Who's the slow AR? They're both slow ARs. So what can you do? Now, that to me just seems like a dysfunctional team. So the resolution seems to be come up with a new hardpoint strategy, apparently. The guys were laughing about whatever Ben actually put in the chat there, because they were like, are you sure that's a new strategy? Like, are we sure that's going to work? So I don't know if Lamar's been pulling the strings a little bit, right? But Accuracy at the start of the season was a very good player, very solid player. But at the end of last year, certainly wasn't good. And maybe there's a similar trajectory here this season where Accuracy's individual performance falls off quite considerably. And, you know, maybe he was on the verge of going, but then he talks to the guys and says, no, you know, you want to keep me for X, Y, Z reasons. And seems like that's exactly what's happening, right? So, and to be fair, if there was one guy who's going to get rid of it, might not be Accuracy anyway, just because of the leadership and other aspects that he does actually bring. But it's difficult to say right now what you want to do. So these are their qualifier runs from here to the end of the season. So they play Boston, Surge, Miami, which is definitely not easy, really. Boston, you should win in 5, but now they've got Major Maniac. Surge are tough online. Miami are tough online. Then you have OpTic, New York, and Ultra. Like, that's your run of 3 there. So you've got a top 4 battle, 3 matches in a row, 2 on the same weekend, obviously, as it has to be. And then Vegas. That's a really hard run to me. Like, that is easily a run where they might not make the winners bracket again. And if they don't, you know, they've got to be chalked. So I am surprised in the same way that Parasite is surprised and Octane is surprised and those guys are surprised that they've not tried to do anything to try and improve their roster, because I'd have thought that it made a lot of sense to try that, but apparently not. And even Major Maniac, I wanted to share this for you guys if you want to check out the exclusive podcast that Ace did with Major, talking a lot actually about how Boston came to the decision, who was involved in that decision happening, talking about you know, some drama between Colt Havoc and himself on the Gen G team, how they competed with the FaZe core back in the Black Ops 4 days, all this type of stuff. So the roster drama may not be over quite yet, but just wanted to look how the standings are playing out right now, because Minnesota are in 8th place at 120. They have a pretty hard run, I would say. They don't have a great map win-loss. They don't have a great series win-loss. I would say they are very much on the verge, if not right now. Like, I genuinely thought they would have to make a change, and what they should have done with that change, that's another question, but I thought they needed to try something different if they wanted to make champs. They haven't done, so you gotta think that they're gonna stick it out now, and I don't know, my prediction would be they're probably not gonna make it. This apparently deep team discussion they had on what to do, either they've turned a massive corner or they haven't. We'll find out very shortly, because if they haven't, they are likely going to get leapfrogged here. So very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.